Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
Shadows and Serpentes by Alenthedragon. This is a fan fiction about what if Luffy eat a different devil fruit instead of the gum fruit. He will have the dragon fruit, model dragon of darkness and shadows. He is joined by Hancock, who is his age here, and has a different fruit as well. Hope you like it. Adios.
The morning after the party was filled with a calm, warm atmosphere. Luffy woke up in the shared room with Hancock, stretching and yawning. The soft light of the morning filtered through the windows, but his attention was drawn to the sight of Hancock and Nami still sound asleep beside him. A small smile tugged at his lips. Man, what a night, he thought, as he lay there for a moment, just soaking in the peacefulness. Nami was the first to stir. She opened her eyes, smiled when she saw Luffy, and kissed him gently. "Good morning," Nami said softly, her voice still heavy with sleep. Luffy grinned back at her. "Morning, Nami." Nami stretched her arms above her head, her usual enthusiasm returning. "So, what are we up to today?" she asked, blinking away the remnants of sleep. Luffy rubbed his face and sat up. "Well, we should be in Alabasta soon. But first, breakfast." Nami nodded in agreement. I'm hungry." Luffy then turned to Hancock, still curled up peacefully beside him. "Hancock, wake up," he called, his voice soft but persistent. Hancock mumbled something in her sleep, clearly not ready to leave the warmth of slumber. "Just a bit longer," she groaned. Nami, mischievously smiling, shot Luffy a wink and whispered, "Watch this." She got up quietly, and yelled with all her might, "Ooh, Pudding is baking a huge chocolate cake." Instantly, Hancock shot up from the bed, eyes wide, looking around in a panic. "Cake? Where?" She saw Luffy and Nami both laughing, unable to contain their amusement. Hancock narrowed her eyes but couldn't help the faint smile tugging at her lips. "Hey, that's not fair," she pouted. Luffy leaned over and kissed her. "Come on, let's get some breakfast," he said, standing up. Hancock stretched and then finally gave in. "Okay," she sighed with a small chuckle, "but I better get a slice of cake." Luffy, Hancock, and Nami walked into the Shadow Sorrow's grand dining hall. The scent of breakfast filled the air, and the room buzzed with chatter and energy. Already seated were Kobe, Gem, Sanji, Yamato, Pudding, Alvida, Vivi, and Kuro. Luffy waved lazily. "Hey guys." Kuro stood up, a serious expression on his face. "Captain, we found something you'll want to see." He handed Luffy a thick folder, weathered, sealed, and marked with the marine insignia. Luffy opened it and began flipping through its contents. As he read, his eyes narrowed, and then a slow, sinister grin stretched across his face. "Looks like the Marines are getting scared." Yamato raised an eyebrow, pausing with a dumpling halfway to her mouth. "What do you mean?" Luffy tossed the folder on the table. Scattered inside were bounty posters, some old, some fresh, as well as photos of the rest of the crew who didn't have bounties yet. At the top of one doant was a bold, stamped label, "Threat Classification, Level 5 High Priority." "They've labeled us as a Level 5 threat," Luffy said with amusement. "And get this," he pointed to the final section of the report. "Possible alliance with Emperor Kaido and Empress Big Mom." Yamato spat out her food, nearly choking. "What? Those idiots think just because me and Pudding are on your crew, that means you're allies with my psychotic father and her crazy mom." Pudding, chewing on a slice of cake, huffed. "TCH. That's insulting." Luffy leaned back, grinning. "Excellent. Looks like Galdino did exactly what I told him to." Nami blinked. "Wait, this was your doing?" Luffy nodded smugly. "Yap." Sanji adjusted his tie, clearly uneasy. "So, does that mean we're all getting bounties soon?" He brightened up, then paused, his face going pale. "Wait, what photo did you use for me?" He yanked the file closer and pulled out a marine photo. His eyes widened in horror. It showed him in a full pervert mode moment, nose bleeding, with a dazed expression while leaning way too close to Pudding. Luffy burst out laughing. Nami snorted into her drink. Even Hancock smirked. Sanji slammed his head on the table. "Luffy, you couldn't get a better picture of me." Luffy just grinned. "Nope. Alvida leaned back in her chair and suddenly remembered something. Oh, Luffy, I almost forgot. Dalton gave me this letter for you. It's from your brother. She handed him a neatly folded letter sealed with a crude flame emblem. Luffy broke the seal and read it aloud with a grin forming on his face. Hey bro, congrats on your engagement with Hancock. Don't forget my invitation to your wedding. Anyway, meet me for a drink in Alabasta, I'll be waiting for you in Nanohana. Hancock leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand. Looks like that flame brain is waiting for us. Luffy chuckled. Guess so. Maybe I can talk some sense into him, get him to abandon this hunt for Teach before he does something stupid. Yamato, who had been sipping tea, suddenly froze. Her eyes widened. Wait, Ace is coming. Luffy nodded. Yamato's cheeks flushed red. I need to go. Bye. She bolted out of the room in a panic. Vivi blinked in confusion. What was that about? Hancock smirked. Oh, nothing much, except Yamato's had a crush on Ace for a long time. Alvida let out a hearty laugh. Well, looks like our scary drill sergeant has a soft spot. Kuro cleared his throat. Captain, what do we do about our prisoners? Don't forget, in Alabasta we're not just dealing with Crocodile and his minions, we've also got Admiral Akainu. Luffy's expression darkened slightly, but his grin remained. Don't worry. Leave the magma idiot to me. Hancock rolled her eyes playfully. Fine, but I get dibs on Crocodile. Since you're going after the grand prize, I'll settle for the consolation round. Vivi's eyes went wide. You two are insane. Luffy turned to Kuro. How are our prisoners doing? Kuro flipped open a notebook. The pink-haired captain is mostly quiet. Smoker, according to Kobe, is difficult. Kobe nodded, looking exhausted. Yeah, ever since you ordered me to confiscate his cigars and put up that no-smoking sign, he's been a nightmare. Luffy blinked. What? The cells are right next to the gunpowder. It's a safety measure. Nami asked, and what about the sword girl? Kuro replied, she's stable. Chopper and Kaya treated the injury Zoro gave her. It's not life-threatening. But Zoro isn't acting like himself. Nami looked concerned. What do you mean? Sanji, arms crossed and looking unusually serious, said, he's in the supply room, doing inventory. I went down there, asked him to get a drink with me. He refused. Hancock arched a brow. Zoro refusing a drink, that is serious. Sanji nodded. Yeah, since he fought that girl and broke her sword, he hasn't been himself. Luffy's eyes narrowed slightly. I see. Alright, I'll go pay our prisoners a visit. Hancock, mind checking in on Zoro? Hancock stood up gracefully. Of course. As Luffy made his way to the lower decks of the Shadow Sorrow, he descended into the holding cells where their high-profile prisoners were kept. The dim corridor was silent except for the creak of the ship and the occasional drip of condensation. Inside the cell block sat three figures, Hina, calmly perched on a bench, Tashigi, curled in a corner with red, puffy eyes, and Smoker, who stood the moment he saw Luffy. Shadow Dragon. Smoker roared. You'll pay for this. Luffy ignored the outburst and smiled coolly. Good morning, you three. Hope you're enjoying your hotel rooms. Smoker wasn't amused. He stepped forward and gripped the bars. Listen to me, you punk. I swear I'll kill you. You cost me 3 years of my life. Luffy blinked, confused. Huh, Smokey, are you still pissed I ruined your perfect record at Logatown? Smoker looked like he was about to explode. Are you really that dense? This isn't about that. It's about Nezumi. Luffy tilted his head. Nezumi. Smoker snarled. Yes, you idiot. I spent 3 years investigating that rat. I knew he was in Arlong's pocket, running a slaving ring across East Blue, but I needed proof. I finally gathered enough evidence to take him down. Slavery logs, bribes, Steen, you and your little chaos crew show up. Luffy blinked again. Wait, are you saying? Smoker cut him off. Yes. Just when I was ready to bring him in, your Panther girl sliced Arlong's head off, and then you, that long-nosed sniper, and the lightning Logia girl robbed the base dry. I saw the security footage. And then you handed Nezumi over to Garp, who had him shot the moment they reached the next base. Luffy rubbed the back of his head, sheepish. Ah, oops. Smoker gripped the bars tighter, shaking them. Oops. 3 years down the drain. I swear, you and that navigator of yours are going to pay. Before he could say more, Tashigi lifted her head, her bloodshot eyes locking onto something. Her gaze fell on the black-hilted katana at Luffy's side, its elegant, ominous blade nearly humming with dark energy. Her expression shifted from surprise, to panic, and finally to pure horror. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Shadow, Slicer." Luffy's casual attitude dropped slightly. He turned to her, now ignoring Smoker, and walked up to her cell. He crouched at the bars, smirking. "Ah, so the sword nerd noticed my mother's blade." Tashigi recoiled. "Mother. No, it can't be, your mother is. She Devil Lilith," Luffy finished for her, grin widening. "Yes, she's my mom. She gave me this sword, and she's the one who trained me and Hancock when we were kids." Tashigi's face turned pale as snow. Hina, who had been calm until now, also went rigid, her own complexion losing color. Smoker's mouth hung open for a second. No way, that would mean. Luffy stood up and looked him in the eye. "That she-devil Lilith is Garp's daughter-in-law." "Yeah, she is." Luffy turned to leave the holding cells when Smoker's voice rang out once more, loud and defiant. "Shadow Dragon," he shouted. "Listen here. Personally, I don't care who your mom is. One day, I will arrest you. I can take the insults, I can take the embarrassment, but what you did here is true evil." He dramatically pointed toward a sign on the wall. "You took my cigars." Smoker then jabbed a finger at the big, bold, "No smoking" signs posted all over the brig. Luffy laughed, throwing his head back. "You big baby. Quit whining." He pointed to 9 large barrels stacked behind the cells. "That's gunpowder. You light a cigar in here, and we're all sky high." Hina, suppressing a smile, nodded. "He does have a point, Smoker." Luffy sighed and folded his arms. "Look, if you 3 behave yourselves, I'll let you be tied to the main mast for a bit each day so you can breathe fresh air. Smoker, I'll even give you 1 cigar." Smoker grumbled but didn't argue. Tashigi was still silent, processing the revelation about Luffy's mother. Hina simply gave him a quiet nod. With that, Luffy turned and headed topside. As Luffy stepped onto the main deck, he froze. His eyes went wide. The deck was a battlefield. On one side stood Nami, fully transformed into her hybrid form, Panther Lady. Her claws shimmered with armament haki, her eyes wild with bloodlust. On the other stood Zoro, bandana tied, all 3 swords drawn and glowing with blackened haki. Meanwhile, Robin, Yamato, Sanji, Marianne, Vivi, Alvida, Kaya, Kuro, Hancock, Mikita, Salome, Chopper, and Pudding stood nearby, watching the chaos unfold like spectators at an arena. Behind a makeshift barricade, constructed from crates and barrels, Jem, Usopp, Kobe, Kuru, and Richie crouched with army helmets on. "What the hell is going on?" Luffy roared. Hancock, arms folded, answered with a sigh. "Well, things escalated. Nami and I went to talk to Zoro. He was being stubborn. Nami called him a coward, said he was letting some girl cloud his judgment. Then she told him to just fuck the girl and get it over with, and called him a loser swordsman." Luffy winced. "Yeah, that'd do it." Hancock nodded. "Now they're trying to kill each other." On the battlefield, Nami snarled. "Come on, Moss Head. Surely you've got more fight in you, or are you worried about your girlfriend?" Her claws gleamed, her aura pulsing with controlled rage. Zoro's face twisted with fury. "Shut up, you feline witch. This is none of your damn business. Take back what you said." Nami tilted her head, smirking. "Try me, loser. Or go to your room and play with your 4th sword." That did it. Zoro let out a battle cry, "I'll kill you." Nami grinned, crouching into a ready stance. "Bring it on, lover boy." 5 hours later, the duel raged on. Sparks flew as hockey-clad claws met hardened steel. The deck was scarred, torn apart by shockwaves, slashes, and thunderous blows. The rest of the crew, Luffy, Hancock, Robin, Vivi, Sanji, Yamato, Usopp, Kobe, Jem, Pudding, Alvida, Kaya, Kuro, and even Salome, Richie, and Kuru, were sprawled across the railings, watching the carnage like it was a theater show. By now, Zoro and Nami were bruised, panting, and covered in sweat. Nami's beast form flickered with exhaustion. Zoro's swords were still up, but his arms trembled slightly. The two glared at each other. Finally, Nami huffed. "Got everything out of your system, Moss Head." Zoro, sheathing his sword slowly, nodded. Yeah, thanks, actually. I needed that. Nami, grinning, wiped a smear of blood from her cheek. No problem. Luffy walked over, casually clapping his hands. Well, that was entertaining. He leaned down, kissed Nami on the cheek, and whispered, thanks for helping Zoro out. Zoro stood straighter, scratching the back of his head. Yeah, sorry for being a jerk, Captain. Luffy turned toward the wreckage of the deck, boards split, railings broken, crates in splinters. Right, he said with a grin. As punishment, you two are gonna fix all this. Nami's eyes widened. But I'm your girlfriend, she pouted, then leaned close, her voice low and teasing. And if you let me off the hook, I'll do that thing you and Hancock like tonight. Luffy's face went beet red. Okay, fine. You're off the hook. Zoro's jaw dropped. What? Seriously? So I have to fix all this by myself? Luffy shrugged, wrapping his arms around both Hancock and Nami. Well, yeah, it was your bad mood that caused this whole mess. As the three walked off together, Nami turned around and flashed Zoro the middle finger, grinning wickedly. Zoro stared after her, fists clenched. That damn witch. I swear I'll kill her, but then, more softly, he muttered, still, I guess I should thank her. She beat some sense into me. The next morning, Luffy sat at the desk in his quarters, speaking into a small black Den Mushi, its eyes squinting as it relayed the encrypted message. A half-empty bottle of rum sat nearby, untouched for once. His eyes were focused, serious. So, you're sure about this? Luffy asked. The voice on the other end was calm and precise. Positive, Captain. I intercepted the call between Sengoku and Akainu. Sengoku clearly said to that magma bastard, help Crocodile at all costs. Alabasta can't fall into the hands of the Shadow Dragon. As for the princess, if she's working with Luffy, do what must be done. Luffy's eyes narrowed. So, Sengoku wants Akainu to hand Alabasta over to the world government. Yeah, the voice confirmed. And as for your three marine prisoners, Smoker, Hina, and Tashigi, they said, and I quote, do as you please. Luffy leaned back in his chair, letting out a breath. I see, alright. Continue your mission in CP9. We'll meet at Water 7. The voice chuckled. Roger that, Captain. Honestly, I can't wait to officially join your crew. Taking orders from that idiot Spandam and that psycho Lucci is getting real old. I owe you and Hancock my life. I'm yours, until death. Luffy smiled faintly. You'll get your chance soon. And thanks for meeting with Galdino. No problem. Though I do have to ask, why did you want me to feed Spandam information about your crew? Luffy's grin turned sly. Simple. To keep the CP organizations in the dark. The less they know about our real operations, the better. The voice laughed. Captain. Alright, I'll see you in Water 7. Spandam already assigned me there a month from now. For now, I'm laying low in the West Blue. Good. Stay safe, Luffy said before hanging up. Just as he set the Den Mushi back in its case, the door to his quarters opened. Nami, fresh from the shower with a towel draped around her neck, walked in. Who was that? She asked casually, though Luffy could tell from her tone that she'd overheard more than a little. He gave her a small smile. Oh, that. Just our future crewmate. He's currently our mole in CP9. Nami's eyes widened. Wait, we have a mole in CP9. How? Luffy shrugged. Long story. But yeah, he's one of us. He'll be joining us in Water 7. And believe me, he's something else. Crazy, loves a good drink, but loyal to the core. Nami placed her hands on her hips. Well, since I'm your and Hancock's girlfriend now, no more secrets. Luffy chuckled, got up, and pulled her close. He kissed her. Alright, no more secrets. The desert winds of Alabasta were finally within reach. The Shadow Sorrow sailed along the calm, sun-drenched waters off the coast. The golden sands of the kingdom loomed ahead like a mirage on the horizon. On the lower deck, Usopp, Kobe, and Richie, Nami's massive lion, were attempting to fish off the side of the ship. In an act of desperate creativity, or idiocy, they had tied a rope around Karoo, Vivi's loyal super duck, and were dangling him over the edge like bait. He's a duck. Fish love duck meat, right? Usopp rationalized. Kobe, gripping the rope, looked unsure. I'm pretty sure this is a war crime. Karoo flailed helplessly in the air, quacking in protest as Richie growled impatiently beside them. Then, the temperature dropped. "You idiots," came Vivi's furious voice. They turned just in time to see her shift into her majestic fox form, elegant, golden-furred, with sand swirling around her body like an aura. Her eyes glowed. With a flick of her tail, a sandstorm erupted, blasting the three into the mast in a puff of dust, feathers, and yelling. "You used Karu as bait," she screamed. "We didn't mean it like that." Usopp tried to explain before getting buried in sand again. Meanwhile, on the upper deck, Nami and Hancock were lying on beach chairs under parasols, sunbathing in elegant swimsuits. Nami, basking in the sun, turned her head lazily toward her girlfriend. "So, Hancock," she began casually, "this contact Luffy was talking to last night, who is he?" Hancock raised a brow. "Oh, so he told you about him." "He didn't say much. Just that he's some future crewmate working as a mole inside CP9. Hancock sighed, adjusting her sunglasses. "That flea-ridden lunatic. Figures he'd get mentioned eventually." Nami's curiosity piqued. "Wait, you know him?" Hancock smirked. "Oh, I know him. I trained with him, once. He's a violent drunk, a flirt, and has no regard for authority. But he's also loyal to Luffy and me because we saved his life. He's dangerous, but brilliant. And when he joins, he's going to shake things up." Nami grinned. "You make it sound like he's worse than Sanji." Hancock looked toward the horizon. "Worse? Oh no, he's Sanji on rum and explosives." The sun was still shining, and the mood had shifted to full relaxation mode. Mikita and Robin joined Nami and Hancock, both of them also dressed in colorful bikinis. Robin settled into a lounge chair, book in hand as always, while Mikita plopped down beside Nami with a fruity drink in hand. Hancock looked around, then raised an eyebrow. "Hey, where's Yamato? I haven't seen her all day." Without lowering her book, Robin answered casually. "She's been trying on makeup and half the wardrobe collection. Even put on a little fashion show for us earlier." Nami nearly choked on her drink. "Wait, Yamato. In makeup. And not in her usual kimono." Hancock sighed, sliding her sunglasses up. "Oh boy, here we go again. It's because Ace is coming. I swear, she's got the biggest crush on him." Mikita blinked. "Yamato, shy." Hancock nodded knowingly. "Oh, you don't even know. When we first met her, she actually thought she was a man." That got all three women to sit up straight. "What?" Nami, Robin, and Mikita said in unison. Hancock chuckled at their shocked expressions. "Yep, she idolized her father's enemy so much that she started identifying as him. Took us 2 full months to convince her she was a girl. 2 months of, 'No, Yamato, you're not Odin,' and constant kimono wrestling. It was a whole thing." Nami facepalmed. "That explains so much." Robin chuckled softly, lowering her book. "And now she's doing fashion shows and makeup tutorials. What a transformation." Mikita grinned, kicking her feet. "Think she'll survive seeing Ace again?" Hancock smirked. "Doubt it. That girl's gonna faint or punch him. Maybe both." As the laughter died down on the sun deck, Sanji and Pudding emerged from the ship's kitchen, both balancing large serving trays stacked with colorful drinks, snacks, and slices of cake. Sanji, spotting the 4 women, Nami, Robin, Mikita, and Hancock, in bikinis, immediately entered love-struck mode, though noticeably more restrained than usual. "Miki-chan, Robin-chan," he cried dramatically, then stopped dead in his tracks, bowing respectfully toward Nami and Hancock. "My ladies." Nami blinked, stunned. "Sanji, what just happened to you?" Sanji straightened his posture and adjusted his tie with pride. "Pudding here is helping me manage my passions." He shot Pudding a grateful smile. "And since you and Hancock are taken women, as a gentleman, I know the guy code, never flirt with another man's woman." That earned a wave of applause from the girls, and even a clumsy clap from Usopp, Kobe, and Richie, all still covered in sand from Vivi's earlier punishment. Pudding placed her tray down with a satisfied smile. And I've got help. Chopper's providing medical support," she continued, lowering her voice with a mischievous smirk, "and Jem is on standby. You see, I showed Sanji some strategic swimsuit pictures of you ladies." Nami's face turned bright red. Mikita choked on her drink. Even Robin's eyes widened a fraction. "And if Sanji starts acting like a pervert," Pudding said sweetly, "I give the order, and Jem blows him up." Instantly. The entire crew froze. Sanji coughed nervously. I'm getting better though. Mostly. Hancock, after a long pause, sipped her drink and said dryly, well, if it works, it works. But Pudding, try not to blow up our head chef unless absolutely necessary. Pudding grinned and gave a crisp salute. Aye, Vice Captain. Luffy appeared on deck, shirtless and holding his sword Shadow Slicer, fresh from a brutal sparring match with Zoro. The swordsman lay nearby, flat on his back, panting heavily and drenched in sweat. Luffy glanced around and spotted the poster Sanji had taped to a support beam, the "No pervert mode or else" sign, complete with Pudding's threat and Gem's explosion warning. He chuckled. I see your treatment's working, Pudding. Pudding nodded confidently. Told you it would. Luffy turned to Sanji, wiping his blade down. Well then, Sanji, if you behave, you'll get your reward, an all-expense-paid trip to Amazon Lily. Sanji immediately went full hearts for eyes mode. Amazon Lily, my all blue of women. He froze, then quickly corrected himself. I mean, yes, Luffy. No problem. Luffy smirked. Good. Because now it's time for strategy. He looked around. I already discussed this with Kuro, though he can't be here right now. Hancock raised an eyebrow. Where is he? Luffy sighed, rubbing his temple. He, Kaya, Alvida, Marianne, Gem, and Chopper are currently stuck watching Yamato's fashion show. Don't ask. Everyone collectively chose not to ask. Luffy turned to Robin. Robin, you used to work with Crocodile. Who are his top agents still in play? Robin nodded, closing her book. Aside from Crocodile himself and the officers you already dealt with, the main threats remaining are the following. Mr. 1 Daz Bones. Abilities. He ate the dice fruit Supa no Mi, allowing his entire body to transform into razor-sharp steel blades. Combat style. A deadly close-range fighter with immense durability. Swords are useless against him, he is a living blade. Personality. Cold, professional, and silent. Loyal to Crocodile's ideals of strength. Miss Doublefinger, Zala. Abilities. She ate the spike fruit Toge no Mi, which lets her sprout razor spikes from any part of her body. Combat style. Agile and dangerous in melee, capable of combining piercing strikes with speed and flexibility. Personality. Calm, calculating, and sadistic when provoked. Often paired with Mr. 1 on missions. Mr. 2 Bon Clay, Bentham. Abilities. He has the clone fruit main no Mi, allowing him to copy anyone's face and body by touching them. Combat style. A flamboyant martial artist who uses a ballet kick style. Surprisingly durable and deceptive. Personality. Lue a hidden sense of loyalty and honor. Mr. 4. Abilities. Unlike others, he's a natural brute with no devil fruit. However, he fights alongside a gun dog named Lasso, a cannon that ate his own fruit and became a living creature. Combat style. Uses an explosive baseball bat, capable of launching powerful slow bombs with Lasso. Personality. Dim-witted but extremely strong. Miss Merry Christmas. Abilities. She ate the mole fruit Mogu no Mi, allowing her to dig underground at high speed and attack from below. Combat style. Often works in sync with Mr. 4 for ambushes and surprise strikes. Personality. Loud, brash, and condescending. Robin closed her notes. They'll be waiting in Rainbase, Crocodile's stronghold. But it's possible Mr. the 2nd of May tried to intercept us in Nanohana. Luffy cracked his knuckles. Then we'll deal with them one by one. Luffy stood tall in the middle of the deck, arms crossed, his captain's aura radiating authority. First priority, be on the lookout for Mr. 2. If he's close, we offer him the same deal we gave to Makita, Gem, Marianne, and Galdino. At the mention of Galdino, Vivi raised an eyebrow. Where is Galdino, anyway? Robin answered smoothly. Currently stationed at the Royal Palace. He's guarding King Cobra, thanks to the letter you wrote. Luffy turned to Robin again. Of those 5 Baroque agents, who would be the best to run Crocodile's casino operations once this is over? Robin didn't hesitate. Zala. Of all the top 5 agents, she's the only one who has a brain. That earned an immediate, hey, from Makita, who stood up with puffed cheeks, offended. Robin continued, calmly turning a page in her book. She's clever, ruthless, and understands long-term planning. She'd be perfect for handling underground operations in Alabasta, Captain. Luffy grinned. Good. Once this war ends, she'll get an offer. He looked toward the horizon, the sandy shores of Alabasta now clearly visible. All right, here's the plan. He began dividing up the crew. We'll be docking in Nanohana. I'll go with Robin, Mikita, Jem, and Marianne to meet them. Robin, where was the meeting spot again? A place called Paula's Bar, Robin replied. Luffy nodded. Perfect. He turned next to Hancock. Hancock, you take Nami, Sanji, Kaya, Alvida, Richie, Chopper, and Pudding. Pay a visit to Crocodile's operation and shake the tree a bit. Hancock smirked. I thought you'd never ask. Luffy then addressed the rest of the crew. The rest of you, Vivi, Kuro, Yamato, Usopp, Kobe, Kuru, head to the rebel stronghold in Yuba. Vivi nodded firmly. We'll try to talk some sense into them before the fighting gets worse. Luffy smirked. Yamato and Kuro will be with you, just in case things go sideways. Robin added dryly, if Yamato doesn't faint at the sight of Ace first. Everyone groaned. Kaya emerged from the ship's lower deck, visibly exhausted, wiping a sheen of sweat from her brow. At her side walked Alvida, casually sipping from a coconut drink, and Kuro, his arms folded, an expression unreadable as always. Kaya muttered to herself, I never thought I'd see an Oni, in leather pants. Kuro, without turning his head, added dryly, yeah, and I thought the high heels and cocktail dress combo was the peak. Alvida chuckled. Oh come on, at least she's trying. Besides, the sparkles kinda work on her. In a terrifying sort of way. Perched on Kaya's shoulder was Ollie, the tiny yet sharp-eyed, now loyal companion. He gave a quiet, approving nod. From across the deck, Luffy appeared, finishing off an apple as he walked up to them. Ah, there you are. Enjoy the show, he asked with a smirk. Suddenly, Ollie's head shot up, eyes wide. Quote, Kaya raised an eyebrow. He thought he missed the whole thing. She sighed. Chopper told me earlier that Ollie had actually fallen asleep the entire time, near the back of the ship. Ollie gasped. Alvida patted his head. Next time, drink less juice and nap less under the cannon. Luffy chuckled. You'll get your next chance. If I know Yamato, this wasn't her last fashion show. As the city of Nanohana came into view, Vivi stood beside Luffy at the railing, the wind tugging at her cloak. She looked tense, fingers gripping the edge. Luffy, what are you going to do about Akainu? She asked quietly. Luffy didn't answer right away. He watched the dunes shift in the distance, then smiled, calm, confident, and just a little bit wicked. Relax, he said. As you know, Alabasta isn't part of the world government. If Akainu wants to act here, he'll need your father's permission. Vivi's brow furrowed. But, you think he'll wait for permission? Luffy scoffed. That red mutt, no chance. He's probably already heard about the prisoners we have in our cells. Vivi's eyes widened. You mean Smoker, Hina, and Tashigi? Luffy nodded. Exactly. And that's good. Because now we have bait. He'll come charging in, self-righteous and loud. That's what I want. He turned to her, grin sharpening. First, I'll finish my business with Crocodile's agents. Then, he cracked his knuckles. Akainu is next. Vivi was quiet for a moment, then asked, and what will you do with them after that? Luffy's eyes narrowed slightly, his voice low. I have plans for them. As the Shadow Sorrow pulled into the port of Nanohana, the crew gathered on deck, looking out at the desert city ahead. Luffy stepped forward, hands on his hips, surveying the hot streets and sun-bleached buildings. All right, we're here. First things first, Sanji, Pudding, Kobe, and Chopper, go get clothes suited for the desert. Sandstorm gear, breathable fabric, you know the deal. The four nodded and quickly disembarked, Pudding already dragging Sanji by the collar. Just then, Yamato stepped onto the deck, wearing a fashionable sleeveless desert robe, adorned with golden trim and boots more suited for a fashion runway than a desert trek. Her cheeks were slightly flushed, hair done up with care. Luffy smirked. Ah, I see our runway model has emerged. Yamato let out a nervous laugh, rubbing the back of her head. Well, you said we were going into the city. Luffy chuckled. Come on. You, me, Nami, and Hancock, we're going to get something to eat. Yamato nodded quickly. Okay. As the group prepared to disembark, Hancock leaned in close to Luffy and whispered with a sly smirk, You're taking her right where Ace is waiting, aren't you? Luffy's grin turned devilish. Yup. Hancock shook her head with a smile. You're evil. I know, Luffy said proudly. But maybe this time, Yamato will finally tell Ace how she really feels. Beside them, Nami adjusted her sunglasses and chimed in with a mischievous grin, and I can't wait to tell Ace that I'm your girlfriend and Hancock's. She burst out laughing. He'll probably have a heart attack on the spot. The group of 5 pushed open the doors to the shaded interior of a bar, a cozy desert tavern nestled between 2 sandstone buildings. The cool air inside was a welcome relief from the scorching sun. Locals and travelers filled the tables, but all noise stopped when Luffy, Hancock, Nami, Yamato, and Richie walked in. Before they could find a seat, a familiar voice rang out from across the room. Hey, bro. Hancock. Yamato. Long time no see. The group turned, and there he was, leaning casually against the bar with a mug in hand. Portgas D. Ace. His signature hat rested on a hook behind him, and his cutlass was strapped proudly to his hip. Luffy grinned. Ace. Hancock smiled too, resting a hand on her hip. Nice to see you again, Flame Brain. Ace smirked. You two haven't changed a bit. But Yamato didn't move. She stood rooted to the spot, suddenly stiff as a board. Her eyes were wide, cheeks red, and her mouth struggled to form words. Finally, in a voice that sounded nothing like the loud and confident Oni the crew was used to, she squeaked. Hello. Ace. It was barely louder than a whisper. She fidgeted with her sleeves, eyes locked on the floor, like a nervous schoolgirl meeting her crush. Nami, Watcrow and smirked. She leaned in toward Hancock and muttered, Man, for a big, scary Oni, she sure acts like a lovesick schoolgirl. Hancock giggled softly. Luffy whispered to Richie, Ten Belly says she faints before dessert. Richie snorted, his mane twitching in amusement. The table was lively, filled with food, drinks, and the buzz of old friends catching up. Ace had just finished laughing at Luffy's exaggerated tale of beating up a sea king when Nami suddenly leaned across the table, smirking. Oh, by the way, Ace. I'm Luffy's girlfriend now. Ace blinked. Hancock cut in smoothly, sipping her drink. Yes, and I'm still his fiancé. Ace froze mid-sip. His eyes slowly widened as realization dawned. He turned to Luffy, slowly lowering his mug. Wait, are you seriously dating both of them? Luffy, with a mouth full of meat, blinked. Yup. Ace slowly stood up, face pale. He staggered back like he'd just taken a hockey-infused punch to the gut. You, absolute monster, he muttered, dramatically pointing at his brother. How did you pull that off? Luffy shrugged. They both liked me. I just didn't say no. Ace collapsed into his chair, head in his hands. I get hit with a chair every time I flirt with one girl, and you've got 2 women fighting over who gets to kiss you first. Nami and Hancock exchanged smug looks. Nami added casually, oh, and we've agreed to share. I'm her girlfriend too. What? Ace shouted, nearly choking. Richie roared in laughter. Yamato just nodded with a small smile. It's complicated, she said. Ace slumped against the table. I'm not drunk enough for this. Luffy patted him on the back. Cheer up. At least now you know why I can't go back to just being Pirate King. I've got family matters too. But eventually, things got serious. Ace's eyes narrowed slightly, the warmth in his face dimming. Luffy, I won't be staying long. I've got something I need to take care of. Luffy stopped chewing. Ace, don't tell me you're still going after Teach. Ace's expression hardened. I have too. He betrayed Whitebeard. Killed a crewmate. I can't let that go. Hancock, ever composed, placed her drink down. You're going to walk into a trap. You know he's not normal. Luffy leaned forward, frustration in his voice. Just let it go. Come with us. You're family. Ace shook his head. I am family. And because of that, I have to go. Don't worry. He stood, adjusting his hat and strapping his sword across his side. I know what I'm doing. As he turned to leave, Yamato, who'd been quiet the whole time, finally worked up the courage to murmur, Gee, good luck. Ace glanced back, and grinned. Then, casually, he reached out and fist-bumped her shoulder. Don't worry, buddy. I'll be fine. And just like that, he walked out the door. Yamato stood frozen, her hand still hovering where he'd touched her. Her expression crumpled slightly, her shoulders sinking. Buddy, she whispered, heart sinking. He called me, buddy. She sat down slowly, cheeks pink, trying not to cry. Nami came over and sat beside her, wrapping an arm around her back. Hey. Nami's voice was soft but firm. If that mean old fire-breathing idiot can't recognize what an absolute beauty you are, then next time I see him, I'll use my claws on him. Yamato's lips curled up into a small, trembling smile. Then, without warning, she grabbed Nami in a massive bear hug, squeezing her tightly. Thank you, Nami. Nami coughed. Yep. Anytime. Just, maybe a little less crushing, big girl. The shadow sorrow loomed like a ghostly giant in the alabastan twilight, its dragon figurehead casting long shadows over the sand-swept bay. Luffy, Hancock, Nami, Richie, and Yamato trudged up the gangplank, the mood unusually quiet. Yamato lagged behind, her massive frame slightly slouched, a tear-streaked pout on her face. Her war club dragged against the wood with a sad little clunk, clunk, clunk. Nami walked beside her, trying her best to lift her spirits. Come on, Yams, you're one of the strongest women I've ever met, and trust me, that's saying something. She winked. Yamato sniffled. He didn't even look at me like that, Nami. I was right there, right in front of him. And he called me, buddy. Richie the lion walked up on his big paws and offered her a tissue. Where he got it, no one knew. He gently nudged her leg with a soft growl. Yamato blinked, took the tissue, and blew her nose with an earth-shattering honk. Nami chuckled and wrapped an arm around her friend's waist. If Ace doesn't see what kind of goddess is standing in front of him, then that's his loss. Not yours. Richie nodded solemnly. Up ahead, Hancock leaned toward Luffy, arms folded, her expression flat. Your brother is the densest man on the Grand Line. And that's including you, love. She narrowed her eyes. How has he not noticed Yamato is head over heels for him? Luffy scratched the back of his head with a sheepish grin. Yeah, Ace is a good guy, but when it comes to girls, he's kind of a rock with muscles. Hancock gave him a flat stare. A hot-headed, kind rock, Luffy added quickly. He turned back, walking up to Yamato and placing a hand on her shoulder. She looked at him, eyes watery, lip wobbling. Hey, I'm sorry about Ace. He's just, kinda slow with feelings. But you know him. He's not trying to hurt you, he's just, clueless. Yamato trembled, and then collapsed to her knees dramatically, raising her arms to the heavens. No, it's not him, it's me. I'm ugly, she wailed, cartoon tears gushing like fountains. Everyone's sweat dropped. You're built like a goddess with a war club. Nami deadpanned. I would kill to have your abs, Hancock muttered under her breath. Even Richie turned away, visibly rolling his lion eyes. Luffy awkwardly patted her head. There, you're terrifying in a good way. Yamato blinked up at him. You think I'm terrifying? In a very pretty way. Thanks, she muttered, utterly unsure whether to cry harder or feel flattered. The gangplank creaked as Luffy, Hancock, Nami, Richie, and the absolutely heartbroken Yamato stepped back onto the Shadow Sorrow. The sun had dipped low, painting the sky in soft oranges and crimson reds, a beautiful view utterly wasted on Yamato, who trudged along with slumped shoulders and a war club that now dragged behind her like a forgotten toy. Up on the deck, Pudding spotted them first. She waved cheerfully, skipping forward in her pink boots. Hey, there you are. We were starting to get worried. Oh wait, what's wrong with Yamato? Sanji blinked as he caught sight of Yamato's puffy eyes and quivering lip. He took a step closer, concerned. Yamato-chan, are you Oka? Suddenly, Yamato screamed at the top of her lungs, fists clenched to the sky. No, I'm ugly. Just an ugly Oni girl no one will ever love. The whole ship went silent for a full second. Then, thud 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 thud, doors opened, boots hit the deck, the entire crew came rushing out to the commotion. Alvida marched up, flipping her hair, brow furrowed. What the hell's going on with her? Nami crossed her arms and sighed, clearly frustrated. Apparently Ace friend zoned her again and didn't even realize she's into him. She thinks she's ugly now. There was a long silence. The boys, Zoro, Sanji, Usopp, Kobe, Chopper, Jem, and Kuro, all winced in sync. Ouch! They muttered together, like a barbershop quartet of pain. Meanwhile, the girls exploded with rage. Alvida, I knew there was something off about that fire boy. Nikita, she's literally a goddess with horns. Pudding, I should shove a cream pie in his face, the bad kind. Vivi, I'll bury him in sand up to his eyebrows and let the desert do the rest. Marianne, I'm gonna paint, idiot, on his back in permanent ink. Kaya, he's clearly blind. Or stupid. Or both. Even Robin, calm and collected, spoke up as she cracked her knuckles. I could always grow limbs in unfortunate places. Yamato, still bawling in a dramatic anime pose, gasped, why you girls really think I'm not ugly. The girls surrounded her instantly, hugging her from all sides, lifting her up literally and emotionally, and yelling things like, Queen Oni. And, Ace doesn't deserve you. From behind them, Luffy raised both hands nervously. Hey, calm down, guys. He didn't mean it. Ace is just. Before he could finish, Nami punched him in the head. Hancock slapped his other cheek. Typical. Nami growled. All men are the same. Figures. Hancock crossed her arms, nodding. Cluelessness runs in the bloodline. Luffy was on the floor, holding his head. What did I do? Even Richie threw a side eye at him, then padded over to Yamato and handed her another tissue with a quiet, regal growl. Luffy stood between the furious women of his crew and the mental image of his brother Ace being lynched by lipstick and lightning bolts. Nami was brandishing her claws, her eyes glowing with armament hockey. Hancock had her hand glowing with venom and petrifying heat. Vivi was conjuring a mini sandstorm. Kaya's fingertips crackled with lightning. Even Robin had summoned multiple arms, one was holding a frying pan for some reason. And Yamato, still tear-streaked, now held her war club with a single clear goal, swing until emotional satisfaction. Luffy waved both arms frantically. Wait, let's not start a riot, people. Put down the torches. You can't just lynch Ace. I mean, technically, I outrank him. Boo. Traitor. Man sympathizer. The booing was loud. Nami even held up a hand dramatically. One more word, Luffy, and you're sleeping outside. With the Sea Kings. Hancock added coldly. And I'll feed your rum stash to the sea rats. Luffy paled. Not the rum. Have mercy. Behind him, the male crew had abandoned him. Sanji, Zoro, Kobe, Usopp, Jem, Kuro, and Chopper were now peeking over crates or hiding behind the ship's masts. Sanji peeked out long enough to yell. You're on your own, Captain. Luffy spun toward them, veins popping. Cowards. Deserters. This is mutiny. Before he could get punched again by Nami or Hancock, his Den Mushi rang from his coat pocket, ring creak. Luffy grabbed it like a lifeline. Oh thank you, saved by the bell. He clicked it open. Shadow Dragon here. Go ahead. Galdino's voice, panicked and whispering, hissed through the snail. Captain, big problem. Like, big problem. Luffy frowned. Unless the girls here set something on fire, it can't be worse than what I'm dealing with. Galdino continued, barely audible. I'm hiding in a closet. A linen closet. At the palace. Admiral Akainu showed up unannounced. Luffy's eyes widened. What? Galdino hissed faster. I managed to slip away into the service corridors, but he knows where you are. He's on his way. With 2 vice admirals. And a whole warship docked at the southern bay. Luffy's jaw dropped. Okay. That is worse. Suddenly, from the edge of the city square, a thunderous voice boomed like volcanic cannon fire. Shadow Dragon. Surrender now. The crew spun around, and froze. Standing at the edge of the plaza was Admiral Akainu, magma steaming from his fists, his coat fluttering in the dry desert wind. To his left stood Vice Admiral Momonga, sword drawn. To his right, Vice Admiral Dalmatian, already half transformed into his zone form, snarling. Behind them, a battalion of fully armed marines pouring into the city with perfect formation. A warship's mast loomed on the coast. Luffy let out a sharp exhale, and then smirked. Sent the red mutt. Looks like he came here to play. The crew behind him lit up. Hancock, smiling with venom, about time. Nami, going into her hybrid form. Let's give him a hot alabastin welcome. Yamato, her mood dramatically flipped. Yes. Violence. Luffy drew his 2 swords, Shadow Slicer and Day Slicer, and shadow tendrils curled around him like a storm. Alright, Shadow Dragon pirates, let's show the Marines why we're a level 5 threat. The 2 sides stood still. On one side, hundreds of Marines, their rifles gleaming in the sun, standing tall behind Admiral Akainu, Vice Admiral Momonga, and Vice Admiral Dalmatian. On the other, the Shadow Dragon pirates, a ragtag force of chaos, love, insanity, and unholy power, gathered behind their captain. The air was thick with tension, until Luffy casually stepped forward, his coat fluttering in the wind. "Hey, Red Mutt," he called, a smirk on his lips. "We've got hostages. You want 'em back?" Gasps rippled through the Marine ranks. Akainu raised a brow, unimpressed. "You're referring to those 3 screw-ups? Smoker, Hina, and Tashigi?" Luffy nodded. "Yep, all cleaned up. Still breathing. If you want 'em, I'll give them back. No tricks. No bombs. No deals. Just take 'em and leave." The Marines murmured again, this was way too generous. Akainu's lips curled into a small, cold smile. "Fine. Bring them here." Luffy turned to Gem and Sanji, who nodded and vanished below deck. Moments later, they returned with the prisoners in shackles, Smoker, looking pissed off and chewing a ruined cigar, Hina, her expression unreadable, and Tashigi, wide-eyed and wary. Smoker looked up. "Admiral Ak, silence, all of you." Akainu barked. Even the Marines went quiet. Akainu's voice was like thunder. He stepped forward, lava dripping from his hands, steam hissing where it struck the ground. His gaze locked on the 3 former prisoners with disdain. "My orders were to retrieve you alive. But I've changed the mission parameters." The tension spiked. Luffy narrowed his eyes. Akainu continued, loud enough for both crews to hear. "The Marines cannot tolerate this level of disgrace. You allowed yourselves to be captured, failed your missions, and brought shame to the world government. Therefore, by my authority as Admiral, I hereby declare, Captain Smoker, Captain Hina, Sergeant Tashigi, you are no longer Marines." The trio stood frozen in disbelief. The Marines behind Akainu exchanged shocked glances. "You will die here," Akainu finished coldly, his fists igniting, alongside these pirates. Then, wham! A black-scaled, hockey-wrapped dragon fist smashed into Akainu's jaw with cataclysmic force, launching him through the air like a comet and smashing him into a distant rock formation, which crumbled from the impact. The ground shook. Marines screamed. Sand exploded. All eyes turned to the one who struck him. Standing there, bathed in shadows, his wings unfurled, horns curling, and both swords drawn, was Monkey D. Luffy, the Shadow Dragon. "Oh no you don't, Red Mutt," Luffy growled, voice distorted by power, "not on my watch." His dragon eyes glowed like twin suns as he pointed Shadow Slicer at the crater. "You don't get to kill my crew's prisoners. You don't get to betray your own people. You don't get to decide who lives or dies here." He roared, shadow tendrils exploding from his back as the Shadow Dragon pirates lined up behind him, ready for war. Smoker, Hina, and Tashigi stood still, completely stunned. He was going to kill us," Smoker muttered, fists clenched. "And, Luffy stopped him," Hina whispered. Tashigi fell to her knees, trembling. "He saved us, even after everything." The Marines hesitated, uncertain. The Shadow Dragon pirates, grinning, growling, ready. Luffy pointed his sword forward. "Let's finish this." The moment Luffy launched Akainu into the rock face, the battlefield exploded into chaos. Shadow Dragon pirates, engage. Luffy roared, his voice echoing like thunder over the capital. Marine rifles opened fire. Cannons boomed. Swords flashed. But they were too slow. Vivi burst into her fox fruit, hybrid form, sand swirling around her. Her 9 bushy tails lashed out like living whips. "You trespass in my kingdom," she snarled. She darted forward in a blur, slashing with razor-sharp claws and leaving craters of quicksand in her wake. Marines sank screaming into the pits as desert animals, giant scorpions and fennec foxes made of sand, rose behind her like summoned beasts. She bared her fangs. This is Alabasta's wrath. Nami had shed her jacket and transformed into her Black Panther Zone hybrid, her body sleek and shadowy, muscles tensed, fangs gleaming. She leapt through the air, claws glowing black with armament hockey, and ripped through a squad of Marine swordsmen like paper. "You want a fight? Here's your damn fight." One Marine tried to run. She pounced on him, claws crashing into his blade, shattering it with a grin. Slash! He went flying into a wall. Vice Admiral Dalmatian, half transformed and charging on all fours, snarled as he struck. "You're strong, snake woman. But I'm a vice admiral." Boom. He was blasted across the plaza, bouncing like a ragdoll. Hancock, in her hybrid Gorgon queen form, massive, majestic, serpentine, floated above the battlefield, hair made of coiling snakes, eyes glowing. She slammed down with her serpent tail covered in venomous haki, cracking the stone below. She caught Dalmatian mid-leap with a spin swipe to the snout, stone flash, and half of his body turned to stone on impact. "Good dog. Stay." Yamato stood in the middle of the plaza, chest rising, war club crackling with haki. Her eyes locked onto Vice Admiral Momonga, a brutal mountain of muscle-wielding Naginata. "You're just like him," she muttered. "Another man telling me I'm not good enough." She charged, her hybrid form igniting with Conqueror's haki, slamming her kanabo against his blade with a blast that cracked the earth. Clang! Momonga grunted. "You'll regret this, brat." Yamato snarled. "I regret nothing." She spun, club glowing black, and crashed it into his ribs, sending him flying and coughing blood. "I'm not a sidekick. I'm the only princess of this crew." The crew unleashed. Kaya rode lightning bolts, zapping squads from above with pinpoint accuracy. Sanji, under Pudding's suppression training, unleashed flaming kicks while dodging bullets with observation haki like a demon. Kobe bounced and stretched, smashing Marines with gum-gum techniques and Baby Conqueror's bursts. Usopp was sniping Marines from a distance. Robin used giant arms to yeet Marines into the sky. Nikita, Jem, and Marianne caused utter chaos with exploding body slams, nose bombs, and terrifying paint illusions. Zoro and Kuro danced through the battlefield, blades singing, blood flying. At the center of it all, Luffy, in his dragon hybrid form, stalked through fire and smoke. He swung Shadow Slicer and Day Slicer, cutting down Marines like shadows through light. He pointed a sword at the crater where Akainu had landed. "Get up, Red Mutt. You started this war, now face the shadow you unleashed." The ground trembled. From the dust and shattered rock, Akainu rose, magma pouring from his cracked face, rage boiling. "You'll die here, Monkey D." Luffy grinned. "You first." The battlefield was a storm of chaos, smoke, lightning, fire, and screams. Marines fled. The Shadow Dragon pirates roared in triumph. But at the center stood the real clash. Luffy, in his terrifying Shadow Dragon hybrid form, wings extended, horns glowing with dark energy. His body was wreathed in shadows that hissed like serpents. His twin swords, Shadow Slicer and Day Slicer, gleamed with a sinister light. Across from him, Admiral Akainu, magma erupting from his fists, his body boiling with rage, eyes glowing with murderous intent. "Your flames won't burn me," Luffy growled. "I've walked through hell already." Akainu snarled. "You're just another brat playing pie." They collided, fists and blades and magma and shadows exploding like gods clashing in the heart of Alabasta. Luffy swung Shadow Slicer, Akainu countered with a magma-coated punch. Luffy kicked forward, only for Akainu to grab his leg with molten claws, searing his skin. Akainu launched a magma wave, Luffy cut through it with a shadow-coated slash. Haki versus Haki, each blow shook the whole island, craters forming at their feet. They were evenly matched, observation haki preempting strikes, armament clashing, devil fruits roaring. Smoke, heat, shadows. It seemed like a draw. Until Luffy's eyes narrowed. He stopped smiling. "All right, no more playing around." He took a deep breath. His wings snapped outward. The shadows surged. The sky darkened. Then, Luffy focused all his power. Both swords ignited with deep black armament haki, coating them in obsidian gloss steel. His shadowed tendrils wrapped around the blades, merging with the haki, twisting, warping, screaming. Conqueror's haki crackled across his body, red lightning flashing through the air. Akainu's eyes widened slightly. "What? This," Luffy growled, voice like a demon, "is my true power, Mutt." He vanished. Shoom. In a blink, Luffy reappeared behind Akainu. Shunk. Blood burst into the air. A clean, deep slash across Akainu's chest, from shoulder to waist, burned skin and boiling blood sprayed as the magma user staggered back, roaring in agony. Gwa hhhh. Steam erupted from the wound. Marines gasped. Some screamed. Akainu dropped to one knee, panting, smoke billowing from his chest. He looked up, eyes red with pain and rage. "You, bastard!" Akainu turned toward a group of Marines, some had started retreating after seeing him wounded. He raised his arm, magma pouring from his fist. "Cowards! Traitors! I'll kill you myself." But as he moved to strike, flash! Shhhnk! A blade of pure shadow and haki sliced through the air. Chop! Akainu's arm hit the ground. Blood and lava splattered across the sand. Arg! He clutched the stump, screaming in rage and agony. Luffy stood over him, shadow slicer dripping molten blood and magma. His eyes glowed red, shadows swirling at his feet. "No one dies here unless I say so." The battlefield went dead silent. The Marines froze. The shadow dragon pirates stared in awe. Akainu writhed on the ground, his chest slashed, his arm gone, his pride shattered. Smoke curled from Akainu's severed arm as he staggered back, magma leaking from his wounded chest. He dropped to a knee, breathing heavily. Across from him, Luffy stood tall in his shadow dragon hybrid form, wings spread wide, swords dripping magma-tainted blood. His smirk grew. "What's wrong, Red Mutt? Can't take the heat you dish out." The crowd of Marines stood frozen, uncertain. Some looked ready to drop their weapons and flee. The shadow dragon pirates watched carefully, tensed but confident. Too confident. Akainu's eyes flicked up, calculating. Cold. Vicious. He suddenly lunged, dragging magma from the ground with his remaining fist. Cocky brat. Wham! A magma punch slammed directly into Luffy's right wing, searing flesh, cracking bone. Luffy screamed and staggered backward, his wing flaring and sizzling. Graahhhh. But Akainu wasn't done. He roared forward and, with his remaining fist covered in black armament haki and molten magma, struck Luffy square in the chest. Boom! Luffy was blasted back, crashing through a stone pillar and skidding across the sand, blood now pouring from his chest, shadow energy flickering wildly. "Luffy!" Nami screamed, charging forward, only for Robin to grab her arm. "Wait, look." Before Akainu could pursue, a voice cut through the battlefield like a cannon blast. "White chase." Boom! A white blur slammed into Akainu's side with a cloud of smoke and one hell of a punch, knocking the admiral a few feet to the left. Dust and embers swirled. Everyone turned in shock. Standing tall in his coat, no longer a marine, was Smoker, his jeet crackling with seastone, his expression unreadable. His coat was scorched. His gloves were torn. But his gaze was fierce. Behind him stood Hina and Tashigi, both breathing heavily, their bindings broken. Flashback. Earlier, Kobe had seen the trio still bound. "Luffy gave me these keys, they deserve a chance." He'd unlocked their cuffs, whispering, "The fight's not over." Back to the battlefield. Luffy coughed, blood dribbling from his mouth, clutching his chest. He looked up and saw Smoker standing over him. He grinned weakly. "I always knew you liked me, Smokey." Smoker didn't even blink. "Oh, shut the hell up, idiot." Then he turned toward Akainu. "Well, looks like my time as a marine is officially over, Red Mutt. But now I get to do what I've always wanted to do." He raised his jeet, steam erupting from his body. "Punch a self-righteous, arrogant bastard like you right in the face." Akainu snarled, eyes glowing with murder. "You're dead." Smoker cracked his neck and slid into a stance. "Come try me." The battlefield burned. Luffy knelt in the sand, his body a mess, his right wing twisted and scorched, chest bleeding, shadows flickering wildly across his skin. He was breathing heavily, every inhale a battle. Ahead of him, Smoker had raised his seastone-tipped jeet, ready to meet Akainu's charge. The admiral roared like a beast, lava spewing from his shoulder, his remaining arm a furnace. "Both of you will die here." He lunged toward Smoker, magma fist cocked back. But then, "Oh no you don't, you magma bastard." Luffy roared. With a scream of pain and fury, Luffy launched himself forward, his broken wing trailing behind like a shredded banner, blood painting the air. He slammed into the space between Akainu and Smoker, landing hard, but upright. Akainu's eyes narrowed. "You again. Then die fur." Time stopped. Every marine, every pirate, and even the vice admirals still standing, froze as the moment unfolded. Akainu expected it. He saw Luffy's arm coated in obsidian armament haki, shadow tendrils coiling around it, crackling with power. He prepared to block his chest, maybe his face, the usual places. But no, he was wrong. Oh so horribly wrong. Luffy's words were low, cold, final. This is for trying to kill my crew and friends. And for being a flaming asshole. He lunged, coiled power surging. Boom. Full-powered armament shadow hybrid dragon fist. Straight to the nuts. Akainu froze. Eyes wide. Magma solidified. The color drained from his face. He didn't scream. He just stood there. Staring. Mouth open. Then. Uahanink. He collapsed. Straight to his knees. Then face first into the sand, his one hand between his legs. Writhing. Agony. Pure, eternal agony. Silence. Kobe dropped his jaw. Vivi covered her mouth. Nami winced and crossed her legs. Robin raised an eyebrow. Brutal. Zoro just muttered, damn. Hancock, blushing furiously, fanned herself. My fiancé is so assertive. Smoker, still standing there, blinked in disbelief. Damn, you went overboard. Luffy, still panting, smirked through the blood on his lips. Nah, he deserved it. He spit on the ground next to Akainu's crumpled body. The battlefield was scorched. Marines lay groaning in the sand. The warship was in shambles, and Akainu, the red mud himself, was unconscious, still curled into a fetal position, clutching what remained of his pride between his legs. Across the field, the vice admirals, Momonga bleeding from a cracked jaw, Dalmatian missing patches of fur and armor, stood wounded but still standing. Luffy, blood still dripping from his chest, one wing bent and mangled, walked toward them like a shadowed storm. His dragon hybrid form loomed over the battlefield, eyes glowing. He raised one sword and pointed it at them. Pick up your wounded, your weapons, and the neutered mutt over there. He gestured at the twitching Akainu. And go crawl back into Sengoku's ass. The vice admirals said nothing. Their soldiers picked up Akainu's limp form, carrying him like a broken statue. Not a word was spoken. Not a threat uttered. They left. The Marines had lost. As the dust settled, Luffy deactivated his hybrid form, cracking his neck as he walked toward Smoker, Hina, and Tashigi, who stood off to the side. His tone softened, but his presence remained commanding. So, what now? You're not Marines anymore. Smoker crossed his arms, his face unreadable. Hina stood straight, silent for a moment. Then Smoker spoke. We're not joining your crew. Hina nodded beside him. Hina agrees. Pirate life isn't for us. Luffy smirked. Didn't think so. I respect that. He turned to look at the horizon, then back at them with a grin. But what about the Revolutionary Army? Smoker and Hina's eyes went wide. What? Smoker said, brow furrowed. Luffy looked over his shoulder casually. My old man's the leader, you know. Monkey D. Dragon. Silence. Tashigi's jaw dropped. Smoker choked on his own cigar. Hina blinked once, twice. Why your father is Dragon the Revolutionary? Smoker barked. Luffy nodded. Yup. The world's most wanted man. He's a good guy, intense, but you'd like him. He needs good people like you. Smoker rubbed his temples. Of course he's your father, that explains so much. Then he looked to Hina. She shrugged. Fine. Hina will join, but only if she doesn't have to wear that cloak. Too dramatic. Smoker sighed. Guess I'm going too. Maybe I can finally punch some celestial dragons. Luffy grinned. Tell my old man I said hi. Before he could turn away, Tashigi stepped forward. Mind if I join you instead? Luffy blinked. Huh, really? Tashigi nodded, face red but determined. I want to become stronger. Strong enough to wield justice the right way. And she glanced over at Zoro, who was currently drinking rum like nothing happened. He still owes me a sword. Luffy chuckled. You sure? No going back once you board this ship. Tashigi saluted. I'm sure. I want to learn, fight, grow. I don't care if it's pirate or marine, I want to protect people. Luffy grinned and patted her shoulder. Welcome to the crew, Tashigi. The sun was beginning to set as the Shadow Sorrow drifted calmly over Alabasta's coast. The storm of war had passed. The crew was finally breathing again. On the main deck, Luffy sat cross-legged on a barrel, bandages over his wing and chest, sake in hand. Around him stood Smoker, Hina, Tashigi, Hancock, Nami, Robin, Zoro, and the rest of the core crew. A breeze swept across the sails, but tension was thick. Luffy glanced up at the trio of former Marines. Since Akainu's gone, I guess I should finally tell you three what's really going on here. He told them about Crocodile's plan. Smoker narrowed his eyes, arms crossed. Knew that sand bastard was up to something. I just couldn't pin what. Hina nodded. Hina agrees. Crocodile was always too quiet for a warlord. Something was off. Luffy sipped his drink, then looked at them seriously. Well, she won't be a threat for long. All three ex-Marines froze. She. Smoker echoed, confused. The rest of the crew turned to Luffy with wide eyes. Yeah, Luffy said calmly, pointing toward the sea. My mom told me something only a handful of people in the world know. He held up 2 fingers. Crocodile's real name is Crocodile. Isla. A moment of pure silence. Then, what? Nami, Kobe, and even Chopper screamed at once. Hancock nodded slowly, arms crossed, face stern. That's right. She once challenged Whitebeard in her prime and lost dramatically. Her bounty back then, around 800 million berry. Robin's eyes narrowed. I've read that name in old bounty logs. Isla, she vanished decades ago, presumed dead. Luffy continued. After losing to Whitebeard, she disappeared, probably faked her death. But with a little help from Ivankov in the Okama Kingdom. He gestured vaguely toward his own body. She changed, and re-emerged as the man the world now knows as Crocodile. Smoker stumbled back a step, the cigar falling from his lips. That explains it. That's why Crocodile just appeared one day, fully formed, reputation airtight. Are you telling me that Sand Freak used to be one of the most feared pirates in the New World? Tashigi blinked hard. I've seen that name before. Crocodile. Isla, she was called the Desert Reaper. A pirate feared for turning entire oases to ash. Zoro raised an eyebrow. Guess the name fits again. Luffy shrugged. Still dangerous. Still a problem. But at least now we know who we're dealing with. Robin leaned forward slightly, curious. Why are you telling us this now? Luffy looked at Smoker, Hina, and Tashigi again. Because now you're free. No orders. No chains. You should know the truth. Because sooner or later, Crocodile. Isla will come for us. Luffy had one last thing to take care of. He disappeared into his quarters. Moments later, he returned, holding a sleek, black Den Den Mushi with red eyes and gold etchings, a secure Revolutionary Army line. He sat cross-legged, set the snail down, and dialed. Purru, 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 click. A gruff but calm voice answered. This is Dragon. Luffy grinned. Hey, old man, we had a small change of plans. Dragon's voice didn't shift, but you could feel the fatherly curiosity. I assume this change involved an admiral. Luffy scratched his head. Yup, I might have turned Akainu into a singing soprano. A pause. Quote. I see. Luffy leaned back, resting a foot on the barrel. Also, I've got 2 new recruits for you. You'll want them. Dragon's tone sharpened. Who? Without a word, Luffy handed the Den Den Mushi to Smoker and Hina. Smoker blinked. You want me to talk to Monkey D? Dragon. Hina muttered, this is above Hina's pay grade. Luffy smirked. You quit. You don't have a pay grade anymore. Hesitantly, Smoker picked up the snail. This is Smoker. Former captain. Logia type. Probably on your radar. Dragon responded instantly. Yes. You've punched a lot of celestial-linked bastards. I've had my eye on you for years. Hina leaned in. Hina here. Former Marine as well. Not as punchy, but just as dangerous. You're both useful, Dragon said simply. 3 operatives are en route to retrieve you. Smoker raised an eyebrow. Who? Your extraction team will be Koala, Sabo, and Lilith. Smoker's cigar fell from his mouth. Luffy suddenly paled. Quote. Wait, Mom's coming. Luffy gently took the snail back. Thanks, Dad. We'll handle Crocodile, Isla. Then follow the plan. Good. Stay sharp. Click. As the line cut, Luffy stood up slowly, turning to the crew. Sue, my mom's coming. Zoro raised a brow. Didn't you say she was some ex-Roger pirate demon queen? Luffy's sweat dropped. Yeah, also second in command of the Revolutionary Army. Nami crossed her arms. You still haven't told her we're in a 3-way relationship, have you? Luffy groaned and slammed his head into the mast. This is gonna be awkward. As Luffy dragged his hand down his face in stress, Vivi stepped forward. Now that Crocodile's secret is out, and I helped you fight the Marines, they'll probably put a bounty on me. Karoo quacked sadly and nuzzled her leg. Luffy looked at her, eyes softening. Yeah, you're probably right. She smiled gently. If that happens, can I come with you? Luffy didn't even hesitate. Of course. Your family. Karoo flapped his wings and let out a heroic quack. Robin chuckled. Another princess on board. Zoro groaned. Great. More royalty. Sanji spun into the air. Princess Vivi Swan. Nami bonked him. Aboard the Shadow Sorrow, the warship gently rocked against the Alabastan tide. Inside the central war room, a long table had been pulled together and covered in maps, cigars, half-eaten cakes, and a Den Mushi currently snoring in sleep mode. Luffy sat at the head, bandaged wing tucked awkwardly behind his back, legs propped up on the table. Around him sat the core of the Shadow Dragon pirates, with Smoker and Hina now present as official revolutionary recruits. Luffy leaned forward, serious for once. All right, Crocodile, Croca, needs to be dealt with before my mom gets here. Robin arched a brow. Afraid she'll take your thunder. Luffy rubbed the back of his neck. No, I'm afraid she'll murder me when she finds out about, you know. Nami smirked from across the table, raising her hand. The part where I'm in a love triangle with you and your fiancé. Hancock, sitting beside Luffy with crossed arms and a possessive smirk, chimed in dryly. Oh yes, the love triangle he conveniently forgot to mention to his mother. The ex-Roger pirate who's likely going to skin him alive. Smoker raised an eyebrow, leaning on the table. Hold on, I've heard of Lilith, but I didn't think she was that dangerous. What makes her so terrifying? Hancock, ever the queen of sarcasm, gave a deadpan response. Oh, maybe because she's a master of all three types of hockey, a swordswoman strong enough to go toe-to-toe with Prime Rayleigh or Scopper Gabon, and she just so happens to have a devil fruit. Hina tilted her head, confused. Hina didn't know she had a devil fruit. Luffy nodded, his tone dead serious. She does. A logia, the storm fruit. She controls lightning, wind, rain, hurricanes, all of it. Smoker's eyes widened. You're telling me, your mom's a walking natural disaster. Hina, for once, looked genuinely rattled. Hina would like to reconsider her life choices. Hancock smiled sweetly. Oh, don't worry. She'll probably train you both. That's how she bonds, with violence. Smoker and Hina exchanged looks. We're screwed, they said in unison. Luffy looked around. Hey, where's Tashigi? Kuro, standing by the doorway sipping tea with a bored look, answered without missing a beat. Zoro's showing her around the ship. Luffy raised an eyebrow. Wait, Zoro. Showing someone around. Sanji, lighting a cigarette, grumbled. More like getting lost together. Watch, they're gonna end up in the cannon bay thinking it's the kitchen. Chopper nodded sagely. Or in the kitchen thinking it's the crow's nest. Luffy leaned back again, groaning to himself. Ah, okay. One crisis at a time. We find Croca, we end her plans, then I survive the hurricane that is my mother. Nami leaned over and kissed his cheek. If she kills you, I'll bring you back just to yell at you. Hancock added, calmly. And I'll kill her back. Politely. Robin smiled. Well, it seems the real war hasn't started yet. Smoker, still processing everything, took a long puff of his cigar. I can't believe I left the Marines for this. Luffy grinned. Welcome to the real world, Smokey. The deck of the Shadow Sorrow was quiet under the glow of early starlight. The chaos had faded, leaving only creaking wood, fluttering sails, and the distant hum of voices below deck. Zoro walked alongside Tashigi, arms casually folded behind his head. Behind them, quietly following, was Marianne, paintbrush in hand, palette tucked under one arm. She had seen Zoro get lost twice already, once calling the art studio the kitchen, and once mistaking a supply closet for the training hall. She decided, for the good of everyone's sanity, to tag along. Tashigi chuckled softly. You really don't know this ship's layout, do you? Zoro grumbled. I know the important parts. Deck, dojo, booze storage. Marianne whispered behind them with a giggle. He once tried to use the cannon bay as a laundry room. They stopped near the port rail as the sea breeze rolled in. Tashigi looked out across the moonlit water, then glanced down at the worn hilt of the basic training sword she'd been given. Zoro, back in Drum Island, why did you shatter my sword? Zoro glanced away. The wind ruffled his hair. Because I used to be like you, he muttered. Before I met Luffy, I thought I could beat anyone. He leaned on the railing, eyes distant. But Luffy showed me how small I really was. I thought I was a swordsman, until I had the chance to fight Mihawk. He humbled me without even trying. Tashigi's eyes widened. You fought Mihawk? Zoro nodded. No, I didn't challenge him. And he didn't even draw his full blade. Told me to become stronger. He looked her in the eye, voice low and honest. I shattered your sword because you were chasing justice with something that would have broken the moment it mattered. You deserve better. Marianne, watching quietly, gave a sly smile to herself. Man, they're gonna end up together. Sword nerds with mutual trauma. Classic. Tashigi, after a moment, changed the subject with hesitation. So, are you really allied with Big Mom and Kaido? Zoro and Marianne both blinked. What? Zoro asked flatly. Marianne's eyes widened, then she snapped her fingers. Ah, the marine file. No, that's not true. She stepped forward, brushing hair from her eyes. Pudding's here because she escaped Big Mom. Trust me, her mom wants her locked in a wedding dress and chained to a tea party table. And Yamato. She's here because Luffy, Hancock, and Ace rescued her from Wano. Kaido's obsessed with killing Luffy, nearly killed him the last time they battled. Tashigi's brows furrowed. Wait, Kaido almost killed Luffy. Zoro nodded. He almost did. Would have finished the job if Shanks and Whitebeard hadn't stepped in to stop Kaido's rampage. Tashigi blinked. So, you're allied with Shanks and Whitebeard now? Zoro smirked, pushing off the rail. Among others. But I'll let the captain explain that when it's time. He reached to his side, unhooking a long black blade wrapped in deep green cloth. He handed it to Tashigi. Here, Yubashiri. Tashigi's eyes widened in disbelief. Wait, isn't this? Zoro nodded. It's yours for now. She held the sword reverently, almost trembling. Zoro, He cut her off with a small smirk. When you find your own blade, one worthy of you, give it back. Got it. Tashigi nodded, eyes burning with pride in something else she couldn't quite name. Got it. Marianne, now standing off to the side, quietly painted a quick sketch of the two, Zoro handing over the blade, moonlight behind them, both standing tall. Definitely gonna frame this one. After handing over Yubashiri, Zoro turned away like the scene was over, but then paused, a thought hitting him like a cannonball. Oh right, forgot to mention something. Tashigi looked up from admiring the blade. Huh. Zoro sighed, scratching his head. You're gonna be training in hockey with Yamato soon. Just, do yourself a favor. He pointed two fingers very seriously at her. Don't mention the name, Ace, or Fire Fist, around her. Ever. Tashigi blinked. Why not? Marianne stepped in, clearly enjoying the incoming chaos. Oh, and while we're on the topic, never say the words, Emperor Ivankov, around Luffy. It's basically a death sentence. Tashigi was now completely confused. Wait, what? Why? Marianne grinned and spun her paintbrush like a teacher with a pointer. Well, when Luffy was a kid, his mom, Lilith, took him to a special island for resilience training. That island was called. She raised her hand dramatically. Kamabaka Kingdom, aka Okama Island. Tashigi tilted her head. Okama. Oh, sweetie, Marianne smirked. That's the island of warrior drag queens. Big, buff, flamboyant Okamas who love makeup, sparkle, and forcing outsiders into dresses. Zoro nodded like this was just another Tuesday. His mom put seastone cuffs on him to keep him from using haki or powers, then let the Okama horde chase him all week trying to force him into a dress. She what? Zoro continued with a shrug. 4 years later, Luffy challenged Ivankov, called him an overweight drag queen with too much blush, or something stupid. Marianne giggled. Ivankov did not take that well. He used his horm fruit to turn Luffy into a girl for a week. Tashigi stared. Luffy was a girl. Zoro nodded. Pigtails. Skirt. Punching everyone who looked at him funny. Tashigi burst into laughter, nearly doubling over, holding her side. I can't, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard. Marianne's grin faded just a bit. Yeah, laugh now. But wanna hear what Ace did to Yamato? Tashigi straightened, still giggling. What? Mary Ann leaned in and whispered the story, how Ace unknowingly friend-zoned Yamato repeatedly, never realizing her feelings. How she waited years, hoping he'd come back. How he called her, buddy, right before he left. Tashigi's smile dropped. Oh. Her eyes darkened. He really did that. Mary Ann crossed her arms. Yep. Yamato cried for 2 hours on Richie's fur. Nami had to cuddle her in panther form. Hancock wanted to throw lava. Tashigi's face hardened with absolute fury. Mary Ann grinned wickedly. The girls are putting together a lynching mob when they see Ace again. She leaned forward, voice like velvet. Wanna join? Tashigi's glasses glinted with righteous female rage. With pleasure. The moon was high, casting silver light across the vast sea as the shadow sorrow sliced silently through the dark waters, heading toward Rainbase. Storm clouds gathered ahead, fitting for what waited there. On the main deck, Vivi stood at the railing, dressed in her royal cloak, staring out toward the horizon. Her hands trembled just slightly. This is it, she whispered. A soft voice spoke behind her. It'll be over soon. Robin stepped beside her, arms folded gently, eyes soft. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For what happened back then. I was just trying to survive. Vivi smiled, eyes misty but steady. It's not your fault. You were a weapon Crocodile used. And now we're here, to end it. From the stairs above, Hancock descended in her flowing robes, every step like a queen entering court. And end it we will. She stopped beside Vivi and looked toward the swirling desert clouds ahead. Tomorrow, Crocodile's getting the beating of a lifetime. She pointed across the deck toward Luffy, who was sitting against a crate, guzzling from a jug of sake while Chopper furiously slapped his forehead. Captain, you're still bleeding. You're on bed rest. I'm hydrating, Luffy slurred with a grin. Hancock rolled her eyes, but her smile softened before she turned back to Vivi. Vivi, how much do you actually know about your ancestry? Vivi blinked, confused. Not much. Just, what's in the royal archives. And that my full name is Nefertari D. Vivi. Hancock smiled. That's right. She stepped closer, her voice lowering. But there's something else. Aside from being the heir to Alabasta, did you know your bloodline holds claim to another throne? Vivi's eyes widened. What? Robin, who had been quietly listening, suddenly straightened, her mind clicking into motion. Wait, Amazon Lily. Hancock nodded. The first empress of Amazon Lily, over 800 years ago, was Nefertari D. Lily. She left her homeland, and became our people's first ruler. Vivi's hand went to her heart. Then, you carry her blood, Hancock said softly. It's why I noticed you. Vivi's breath caught in her throat. So I'm Alabasta's princess and descended from Amazon Lily's first empress. Hancock nodded. You're more than that. You're a queen by birthright. Robin whispered, the D line, it runs deeper than we thought. Hancock turned, her cloak billowing in the wind, her voice steely again. But enough about history. I've got a croc to skin. The shadow sorrow cruised into port under a heavy dusk sky. Rainbase loomed ahead, a glittering oasis of sin and deception. At its center, like a crown jewel of corruption, stood Crocodile's casino, its neon lights flickering through the humid air. Robin stood near the helm, her eyes narrowing. Based on his schedule and past habits, Crocodile should be inside right now, meeting with the remaining Baroque Works agents. Private upper floor. Hancock, arms folded, voice cool as steel. Good. Let's pay her a visit. Luffy, arms crossed, scowled. His wounds were still healing, and Chopper had strictly forbidden him from fighting. TCH, I really hate sitting out. But when Hancock's in reprisal mode. He shivered. It's wiser not to get in her way. Just as the crew prepared to disembark. You really thought I was gonna just sit around and wait for you? The voice was cold, mocking, and dripping with venom. Everyone turned. Down on the coastline, flanked by his lieutenants, stood Crocodile, or rather, Crocodile. Isla, coat fluttering, hook gleaming, cigar clenched tight in her teeth. Behind her stood Mr. One Daz Bones, arms already transforming into blades. Miss Doublefinger Zala cracking her knuckles, body prickling with spikes. Mr. Two Bon Clay, dramatically posing with tears already forming. Mr. Fore and Miss Merry Christmas, standing by with Lasso the dog gun growling. Crocodile stepped forward, her golden hook raised. Shadow Dragon. Luffy stepped to the ship's rail, voice calm but firm. Yeah, I'm here. Crocodile's voice dripped with sugar and oil. Why not make a deal, Akainu proved, disappointing. You and I could form a partnership. Give me back Nico Robin, and the princess, and no one in this world would dare challenge us. The wind grew still. Luffy slowly smirked. Sorry, Croca. The sound of the cigar snapping in her mouth echoed like a bone breaking. But Robin and Vivi are part of my crew. And I'm not your opponent. He turned and pointed behind him. A shadow leapt from the upper deck. Boa Hancock, in all her regality, landed gracefully on the stone pier with a thunderous boom. She stood tall as her transformation began. Her skin shimmered and rippled into scaled armor, black and violet. Her hair slithered into living serpents, hissing and glowing. Her lower body twisted and stretched into a massive serpentine tail, coils dragging across the stone. In her hand appeared a gleaming, black gold longbow, already drawn. Her eyes glowed with a predatory light. I am. She aimed her bow directly at Crocodile's face. The Baroque Works agents flinched. Mr. Fore accidentally dropped his bat. Miss Merry Christmas whispered, she looks like a damn monster. Zala took half a step back, unconsciously. Even Daz, always silent, subtly shifted his stance, blades retracting just slightly. Bon Clay, trembling. She's gorgeous but I'm so scared. Crocodile, regaining her composure, spit out the broken cigar and crushed it underfoot. So be it. She raised her hook, sand beginning to swirl around her. You'll die like the rest. Hancock bared her fangs, pulling the string of her bow tighter. You talk too much. The wind howled across the rain-based pier as Boa Hancock stood like a wrathful goddess, bow drawn on Crocodile. But before the first shot could fire. Hey, you forgot the warm-up squad. 4 more figures landed behind her in a burst of energy and flair. Makita cracked her neck, grinning. I got the fat mole. Jem, already lighting the fuse in his nose, smirked. God, I got the dummy. Sanji, lighting a cigarette, I'll handle the ballerina freak show. Nami, stretching her claws with a grin, the Spike Lady's mine. And surprisingly, Vivi, stepping forward with her fox hybrid eyes glowing. I'll take the blade guy. Crocodile's eye twitched. TCH, children. But the Baroque Works agents were already shaking. Makita and Jem versus Mr. Fore and Miss Merry Christmas. Mr. Fore stood firm with his oversized 4-ton bat, Lasso the dog gun growling beside him. Miss Merry Christmas snarled, popping out of a molehole. You brats think you can handle us. We're the deadly command discount baseball. Makita interrupted cheerfully, waving. Jem added, more like Miss Mole Rat and Mr. Swing and Miss. Miss Merry Christmas's eye twitched. Oh that's it, Lasso, fire. Boom. The bazooka dog launched an explosive baseball. Makita didn't move. She simply stepped forward, glowing faintly as the round passed harmlessly by her shoulder. You missed, she said flatly. Before they could react. 10-ton Valentine. Makita shot upward, then came crashing down directly atop Mr. Fore, her weight multiplied by the kilo fruit and enhanced by observation hockey. The impact shattered the stone pier beneath him with a thunderous boom. Mr. Fore let out a weak wheeze. Urgh. Miss Merry Christmas dove to the side, but Jem was already there, blocking the tunnel exit with his finger in his nose. Surprise. Boom boom, snot rocket. He launched a blast of compressed air and hockey-infused snot directly into her face, blowing her clean out of the tunnel. Ag, my face. Makita landed beside Jem, brushing off her skirt. They're even weaker than I remember. Jem popped his neck, sighing. Observation hockey is cheating. I almost feel bad. Mr. Fore, dazed, tried to swing his bat. FFFFOURRR. Makita drop-kicked him into the wall. Lasso, panicking, fired wildly, boom. Jem grabbed the cannonball midair and headbutted it back with an explosion. Miss Merry Christmas screamed, Retrie 8. Makita and Jem stood back to back, smoke and flames behind them. One-sided, Makita said. Embarrassing, Jem replied. Fun, they said together. Nami vs. Miss Doublefinger, the Panther's playground. The stone streets near the casino cracked as the two women clashed, metal against claw, spike against speed. Miss Doublefinger stood tall, her body bristling with spikes. She spun, transforming her limbs into sharpened lances. You're just a cat with a few parlor tricks. She launched herself forward, spike-covered legs spinning like drills, ready to impale. But Nami vanished in a blur of black fur and gold lightning. She was in her beast form, making her glide across the battlefield with feline grace. A thief, Nami purred, her fangs gleaming. No, sweetie, I'm a huntress. She darted around Miss Doublefinger, claws trailing sparks as she danced across the stone walls, tail swishing. Nami flipped midair and landed hard. Her form shifted, shoulders broadening, claws lengthening, her face fierce with slitted amber eyes and sharp fangs. Her tail snapped behind her like a whip. She was now in hybrid form, the perfect blend of human intelligence and panther lethality. Let's play. Miss Doublefinger, annoyed, stabbed forward with a spike-covered arm. Got you. Shink. The spikes hit, but didn't pierce. Nami's body shimmered for a second, her skin covered in jet black armament hockey. She grinned like a devil. Oh no, darling, I got you. Her claws ignited with hockey, and in one swift, savage motion, she slashed across Miss Doublefinger's extended spike arm. Crash. The spikes shattered like brittle glass. You like sharp things, Nami whispered, circling her prey. Let me show you how it's really done. She pounced, claws out, tearing through spikes with ease. One slash to the leg, Miss Doublefinger screamed. Another across the chest, spikes burst off like shattered armor. A final mid-air spinning claw strike, Black Tempest, sent the Baroque agent flying into a broken wall, blood trailing behind her. Miss Doublefinger coughed, trembling, barely able to stand. Her body was covered in claw marks. Her spikes were shattered. Her confidence, gone. Nami landed like a queen, licking her thumb and flicking imaginary dust off her shoulder. You had no idea what kind of catfight you were getting into. Boom. Miss Doublefinger collapsed. Robin, watching from the rooftop, smiled softly. She's grown. Sanji versus Mr. 2. Smoke and wind whipped across the far side of Rainbase as Sanji stood relaxed, one hand in his pocket, cigarette lazily dangling from his lips. Across from him, striking ballet poses mid-combat, was none other than Mr. 2 Bon Clay, sweating, panting, and absolutely frustrated. Why won't you just fall over, curly brow? Sanji exhaled smoke, his stance casual. Because you keep dancing instead of fighting. He stepped forward, unleashed a flurry of kicks, sharp, elegant, precise. A spinning roundhouse clipped Bon's shoulder. A heel drop shattered a paving stone as Bon barely rolled away. Ow ow ow. You fight like a ballerina from hell. Bon Clay screeched. Sanji yawned. This is getting boring. Bon Clay suddenly paused. Then, he smirked. Desperate times call for fabulous measures. He slapped his face with a glowing hand. Clone transformation. Lady mode. In a puff of sparkles, Bon Clay morphed into a stunning woman. Long legs, fluttering eyelashes, a sultry voice. Oh no, big scary cook man, please don't hurt me. Sanji froze. His nose twitched. His heart beat faster. He lowered his leg just slightly. Milady. Wham. Bon Clay, still in disguise, kicked Sanji in the ribs, sending him stumbling back. Ha. Gotcha. From the deck of the Shadow Sorrow, Pudding had seen everything. Her third eye twitched violently. Sanji. She cupped her hands and shouted across the battlefield. If you mess this up, I'm doubling your therapy. Sanji flinched. Wait, no. Gem popped up behind her. Yeah, more snot exposure therapy. Just you and me. Sanji went pale. Dear God no. He stood straight, took a breath, and closed his eyes. Okay. No more distractions. He focused. Let the sounds, the rhythm, the movement of his opponent wash over him. Observation hockey activated. Bon Clay rushed in again, still in girl form. But now, Sanji didn't need to see. He could feel it. Sorry, but the only woman I'm falling for is waiting to kill me with therapy. Diable Hambi. Enchante. Sanji's leg ignited as he spun forward. A flaming roundhouse to the gut. A backflip kick to the chin. A final spinning mid-air side kick to the temple, boom. Bon Clay went flying with a fabulous pirouette and crashed unconscious into a stack of barrels. Sanji landed smoothly, lit a fresh cigarette, and exhaled. Show's over. From the ship, Pudding smiled smugly. Good boy. Gem, disappointed. Ah, Vivi versus Mr. 1. The air was heavy with heat as the battle raged in the dry ring just outside Rainbase. Wind kicked up swirls of sand, spiraling into mini tornadoes. In the center of it all, Mr. One Daz Bones stood with both arms transformed into massive, serrated blades, his body gleaming with iron sheen. Across from him, barely even panting, stood Vivi in her mythical zone, Fox Fruit, model, Fox of the Sands hybrid form. Her 9 golden tails flicked behind her. Her legs were lean and powerful, her ears sharp and twitching, her hands shimmering with grains of sand that floated and curled at her command. "You're steel," Vivi said, eyes glowing. "But I am the desert." She raised both hands, sand swirled from the ground like a living beast, crashing against Mr. One in waves. Fists of sandstone battered his defense, fox-shaped spirits of sand howled around him, biting and scratching. "Tch," Mr. One grunted. "This is ridiculous. For all his strength and armor, he couldn't hit her. She moved like wind, vanished like mirage, attacked like a storm." But in a split-second moment, Vivi's step faltered. Her left foot slipped just an inch in the uneven sand. That was all Mr. One needed. "Got you." Clang, shink. With blinding speed, he slashed across her leg, drawing blood. Vivi yelped and fell to one knee, her sand shifting wildly. Mr. One raised both arms, ready to bring them down in a fatal cross slash. "No hard feelings, princess. Two-sword style. Vado Ikimanji. Sandai Kidetsu. Armament cross slash." Clang. Mr. One froze. His eyes widened. A glowing X appeared across his chest, black lines shimmering with haki. Zoro stood just behind Vivi, arms crossed, both swords humming with pow, eyes wide in shock, before collapsing unconscious, steam rising from his chest. Vivi looked up, stunned. "Zoro." Zoro sheathed his swords calmly. "Should have let me handle it from the start." Vivi grinned, despite the pain in her leg. "What, and let you have all the fun?" Zoro smirked back. "Tch, you're getting cocky." She laughed, tails flicking. "I learned from the best." With the last of the Baroque agents scattered, bleeding, and unconscious, the sands of Rainbase fell silent for a breath. On the deck of the Shadow Sorrow, the crew watched from afar as Boa Hancock and Crocodile Isla stood alone in the center of the city square, both radiating power so immense it bent the air around them. Yamato stood at the bow, her arms crossed, expression tense. Her long hair fluttered as the wind from the desert clashed with the unnatural aura of battle. She looked toward Luffy. "Are you sure she's got this?" Luffy, sitting cross-legged, sipping a bottle of water instead of sake, thanks to Chopper's threats, nodded slowly. "Of course. It's Hancock." He smirked. "But you feel that?" Yamato closed her eyes. Her observation haki surged outward like a sonar wave, then hit something. Her eyes snapped open, pupils shrinking. "She's here."